So we are calling on people to be warriors for Canada at this time, to defend our values, and to not give in to the appeasement of Donald Trump and his oligarchs.
Well, it seems that Charlie Angus has finally gone off the deep end, completely snapped and lost control of himself. He came before the cameras in Ottawa talking about this project that he's launched called the Canada Project or something. And as you can see by the presentation of the turkey feather, he is completely becoming unhinged. And the people that he had with him were also very unhinged. If I read the entire conference right, I would have to say that he was calling for some sort of grassroots revolution. I don't know, I can't put words in his mouth, but they did use some very strange language. And a lot of their imagery was actually tied to the United States. So I find it bizarre that they want to put themselves up, like put us against the United States, while they seem to be completely enmeshed in all of the culture that comes out of the United States. And I think that's typical, standard of the far left. They believe that they are acting in the same manner while being different. It's a very weird sort of mindset. And one could imagine that if there was a lot of coffee, it might be an entertaining tiptoe through the broken glass. However, this guy happens to be a sitting member of parliament, even if only for a short time. And he went in front of the nation's corporate media and demanded that we all stand up to Donald Trump while we submit to everything that he says. How he went about it is the part that's a little bit cuckoo.
Our beloved Canada is under threat. It is an economic threat, but it's also a threat to our values of decency and inclusion. It's a threat to our sovereignty and our very future as a nation. The threat comes, of course, from the President of the United States, a convicted felon and known predator. But the threat is also being driven by the hate algorithms of the oligarchs like Elon Musk. And there is the threat from people in our own country who would sell out our birthright to appease the gangster class from Mar-a-Lago.
Well, MP Angus opened up pretty strong there, wouldn't you agree? First, he besmirches the character and the good name of Donald Trump, sitting president of the United States. He then slams Elon Musk and his character as well. Following it up, he's trying to lump everybody who he doesn't agree with in Canada in with those same characterizations. And all the while, this is the part that makes me laugh the most, all the while he is trying to convince you that he's not the one spreading hate. Can you imagine ever Elon Musk mentioning the name of Charlie Angus? But Charlie Angus, he's like, Elon's living in his head rent-free. And he is spreading all kinds of hatred towards the Americans. If there was one politician that stood up in America and said that about about Canada, Charlie Angus would lose his mind, calling that divisive and hatred and all kinds of stupid names that the far left likes to pull out when they try to label something, when they don't have the wherewithal or the presence of mind to see that they are the ones that are actually causing the problem, that they are the ones that are spreading the division and they're the ones that are spreading the hate. When he talks about inclusiveness, I suppose he doesn't mean anybody who doesn't agree with him. To be inclusive in the far left, you have to agree with them 100%, or you're not included. That was just the opening, though. It got really bizarre. It just kept getting stranger and stranger.
It's a plan of resistance supporting a vision of our nation and what it should be and what it is that will not be traded away by appeasement. And it's a pledge for ordinary Canadians to hold their elected representatives to account. We will not give up our belief in inclusive democracy, equity, and human rights. We need to combat the foreign interference from both the public and private actors and the manipulations of the digital platforms and defend our people against the rule of the oligarchs. We must give priority at this time to protecting our environment, to maintain control of our water, and staying focused on fighting the climate crisis.
Wow, that was quite a twisty-turny little path down the rabbit hole, wouldn't you agree? On the one hand, he wants us to keep our politicians accountable. Unless they are Jagmeet Singh or Justin Trudeau, then all of a sudden he doesn't want those people to be accountable. He doesn't want Chrystia Freeland to be accountable. He doesn't want himself to be accountable. He just wants us to say that Donald Trump is a bad guy and we all have to get behind Charlie Angus's vision of Canada, which, as you can hear from Charlie Angus, he's quite happy with the fact that we have one trading partner, so that as long as we can stay focused on the environment. The twisty-turny mind frame that he is presenting in this, whatever it is, 60-second clip, it's either one of two things. One, this guy should never write his own speeches. Or two, he is so far out there that he can't even keep track of his trains of thought. He's moving from one subject to another subject to another subject. And I appreciate that perhaps in his mind it all is connected. It just doesn't hold true when you apply the same metric towards, like if we're Canadians, right? You want to apply that standard to Donald Trump. That's what he expects from us. But when we turn around and apply that standard to the Liberal Party and the NDP, they all say, oh, no, you're a nist, you're a phobe. So now we have an even smaller segment of society that he thinks should be taking to follow all of this. And the rest of us are just lumped in with the gangster class from Mar-a-Lago. And you begin to realize when you start to listen to the liberal leadership and all that, how quickly they will not stick to their own words. So, you start to say to yourself, these people are just a little bit out there. But he doesn't seem to realize the contradiction in his own terms. He doesn't seem to understand the hypocrisy in what he's saying. And that's a little bit bizarre and more than a little bit frightening to think that he's a federal minister.
And it's becoming very clear that to build resiliency for Canada in this increasingly turbulent world, it means actually lessening our dependency on our southern neighbor.
Hear, hear.
To strengthen our collective tools and institutions to build the Canada that we want, not the world that Trump is trying to create. And that means reaching out to democratic allies around the world who are determined to protect democracy from the likes of Trump and Putin. And we cannot turn away our historic role of being a humanitarian friend for those suffering in this world. Our borders must continue to welcome and protect those seeking and deserving shelter in our lands.
So if I understand you correctly, Mr. Angus, you don't think that we should secure the border against immigration. You believe that all of the people that are currently running around the United States that may be subject to ICE should be welcome in Canada, no problem at all, despite the fact that we have no place for them to live and we have an economy that is basically less powerful than the weakest state economy in the United States. All right, yeah, it's good. I, however, would take issue with one of the things that you said, where you said that we need to develop other markets to trade our products with instead of relying solely on the United States. And your comrade there said, hear, hear in the background. So I would like to officially welcome you to the Conservative Party. And, it's too bad that you didn't cast your vote that way when we had an opportunity to stop this madness a year and a half ago, when you could have cast your vote with the Conservatives when we wanted to put a no confidence against the government, when, you heard Pierre Poilievre stand up time in and time out and say that we don't have enough foreign investment, that we need to have the pipelines so that we can give our product to Asia and give our product to Europe. When you heard MP Stubbs stand up and say the same thing, when you basically heard everyone in the Conservative Party stand up and say that we need to develop other markets, you said that we do not. And you are now standing there saying that if we don't, somehow, like the idea that in your mind, we are bad people if we suggest opening up other markets. And we're also bad people if we don't agree with your suggestion to open up other markets.
This is going to be the first stage of a much broader-based resistance. Well, we see certainly that Donald Trump is threatening our European allies. He's threatening Denmark and Greenland, and we know that the EU is very focused on that threat right now, because it's not just a threat against the people of Greenland, it's a threat against NATO. This is Donald Trump undermining our allies at a time of dangerous aggression from Putin.
Wow. He went from Greenland to Putin in what, 2 sentences? I mean, the logic leaps there are pretty profound. First of all, Greenland would welcome becoming part of the United States of America. They have said so. Denmark said that they don't really pay attention to Greenland anymore. I mean, why would Greenland hate the idea of having yet another American base, another American port on their territory? Yeah, that's that's not an economic boost to their shot in the arm at all. Leave that aside, your lack of comprehension on global politics. You then say that Donald Trump, who's the president of the single largest contributor to the NATO military force, is going against the NATO allies. You see how he was talking like we are not allies with the United States? Unbelievable. The levels of division that the far left will go in a desperate attempt to detract from the fact that this country is in a shambles, and it got there because of the left policies, that they've been in power for 10 years, and the standard of living in this country is lower than the standard of living in the poorest section of the United States of America.
Because I don't believe that you negotiate in public. Personally, I would throw as much heat on Elon Musk as possible, because he's a deplorable, disgraceful human being. But I do not believe we're prepared in any way for dealing particularly with the threat that's coming from Elon Musk, who's revealed himself to be dangerously anti-democratic.
It's funny that he will call the platform of X one of the largest, one of the most powerful platforms in the United States or in the world. He will be a member of that platform. Here you can see his stats. But for some reason, Elon Musk is a horrible human being who, by opening the platform up to freedom of speech, is somehow going against the democratic values.
So that's one thing people can do. I've even heard people talking about dumping beer in the Halifax harbor. So we're not just calling on the people of Canada. We're trying to put pressure on the leadership, political and economic.
Keeps pressure on our elected officials and our business leaders not to sell us down the river to the likes of Donald Trump.
Oh, my brain hurts. Somebody gave these guys a microphone. Can you imagine? Some people even voted for him. Now, the other lady was just one of his, one of the 3 people up on stage. Donald Trump is putting pressure on our elected officials by saying he's going to put a tariff on our product. And these guys, somehow in their mind, are telling themselves that they are not acting exactly the same way as Donald Trump because they are only putting pressure on our elected officials. Oh, I mean, you can't make it up. And I don't know why we would dump beer in the Halifax harbor unless, you spilt your drink, I suppose. The Boston Tea Party to which she refers was a tax revolt, right? People forget that the spark that set off the American Revolution was a tax revolt. It was a taxation revolt, which would mean that we would need to do something against the Canadian tax market if we were going to have a Boston Tea Party type of a situation. Half the truth and all American. However, trying to use it as a image to make you feel like a patriot in Canada. And somebody gave these guys not only a microphone, but all the time. Oh, man, I tell you what.
Well, to hell with Jeff Bezos. The right of Canadians to make their own decisions about employment is important. We see Elon Musk is a major threat to democracy. But what happened on November 5th was a dangerous shift, an anti-democratic shift.
He's mad at Jeff Bezos now because Jeff Bezos pulled Amazon out of Quebec after Quebec tried to make some unions in a couple of their buildings. And I get that you might want to be mad at Jeff Bezos, but you said that the Canadians have the right to do what they want at their job, and somehow in your mind, Jeff Bezos doesn't. Then Elon Musk exercising his right to free speech and making comments on the state of the American economy, or, you know, who he thinks people should vote for in different countries around the world, is a strike against democracy, which is in a shambles anyway, according to MP Angus, because the American people exercised their right to vote and overwhelmingly elected a man that doesn't agree with Charlie Angus. So Charlie Angus therefore thinks democracy is broken because he couldn't force you to vote the way that he wanted. I mean, come on. This is an elected member of parliament talking like a flat out Marxist. Democracy is broken for exercising your free speech and for voting the way that you wanted to. Businesses are not allowed to leave the anywhere because the employees are somehow the ones that decide what happens with that business. But when you ask Charlie Angus what should happen with the country, he doesn't think that the population should say. He thinks that he should say. It just staggers me to think that this guy takes himself seriously, that anybody takes any of them seriously. Concepts. To think that he's exercising the rights of democracy by giving his opinion on people, and in that opinion, he wants to say that by using their opinion, by giving their opinion, they're somehow violating democracy. I mean, cuckoo seems like a little bit of a soft landing. No, this is right out there. And if it was a parody or if it was a joke or something, yeah, I get it. But he is completely serious. They launched a website for this thing and the whole 9 yards. Man, I showed you the turkey feather at the beginning, right? Incredible to think that this person is in charge of a riding in this country and has a vote on the direction and the economic issues that this country faces. All right, I'm going to wrap here. Be smart with your vote. Thanks for listening. I'll talk to you next time.